You know, when you think about industrial automation, what's the first thing that pops into your head? It's usually the machines, right? The big robots, the cool-looking vehicles moving around. But here's the thing. The real secret to success for these systems has almost nothing to do with the hardware you can see. It actually comes from this whole world of technology that's almost completely hidden from view. And that's exactly what we're going to dig into. So let's say you're looking at automated guided vehicles, or AGVs. I mean, they're the impressive, visible face of modern logistics for sure. But what really dictates how reliable and efficient they are, day in and day out, it's not the vehicle itself. It's the complex, invisible system running the whole show. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll touch on the part everyone always focuses on, the automation you can actually see and touch. Then, we're going to dive deep, way below the surface, into what we're calling the unseen 90%. We'll look at what makes a system truly bulletproof, why flexibility is a must, and how to pick the right partner for the long haul. The goal here is to give you a totally new way to see the whole picture.
Okay, first up, let's talk about the part of automation that gets all the limelight, the physical hardware itself. And it makes total sense, right? When you're evaluating these systems, your eyes are naturally drawn to the machine, the chassis, the nuts and bolts, the physical stuff. I mean, it's the tangible part of the investment, the thing you can literally kick the tires on.
But here's the problem. Focusing only on the vehicle? Well, that's kind of like trying to judge a ship's entire voyage just by looking at the fresh coat of paint on its hull. You're missing the most important parts.
And that brings us to the core idea of this whole explainer. An automation system is a lot like an iceberg. The part that really truly dictates its performance is almost entirely hidden beneath the surface.
Think about this 90-10 split for a second. It completely reframes how you need to look at these systems. Your success, or your failure, it isn't riding on that little 10% of visible hardware. Nope, it is almost entirely determined by that massive, unseen foundation of technology and support that's running things behind the scenes.
So what's actually in this unseen 90%? Well, pretty much everything that matters. We're talking about the core navigation tech, the system design, all the control logic, the complex traffic management, and just as critically, the long-term support you get from your partner. These are the things that turn a collection of vehicles into a truly automated system.
So let's start breaking down that unseen 90%, and we're going to start with the absolute bedrock of the entire operation, navigation.
I can't stress this enough. If the navigation technology isn't absolutely bulletproof, the entire system is vulnerable to failure. Period. End of story.
This really highlights the critical difference. See, on one hand, you have a lot of common systems that rely on things like tape on the floor or lasers and cameras that need a clean, clear line of sight to work. But just think about a real, busy industrial environment for a second. That line of sight gets blocked constantly. Floors get damaged, lighting isn't always perfect. It makes those systems incredibly fragile. The alternative, something like Savant's virtual path technology, is built from the ground up to be totally immune to those real-world problems.
So how does it pull that off? Well, it's pretty darn clever. It uses inertial sensors, kind of like the ones inside your smartphone, to detect motion, and it combines that data with these small, simple navigation points in the floor. The key is that the system doesn't need to see walls or reflective targets, and that means temporary junk in the way. Pallets, forklifts, other traffic, it just doesn't matter. The result is incredible accuracy, which is absolutely crucial for things like automated load handling.
Okay, so bulletproof navigation is step one. But beyond that, a truly robust system also has to be flexible. You need to know that it's not only going to work in your facility today, but that it can adapt as your needs change down the road. And this is a perfect example of that kind of flexibility. Instead of buying a bunch of different single-purpose vehicles, you get a standard chassis that can be configured with different attachments. One day it's towing carts, the next it's tunneling under them, or even lifting pallets. This kind of modular design is a huge benefit because it protects your investment. You can just repurpose your fleet for new tasks in the future. This flexibility also allows for what is basically a try-before-you-buy process, which is a massive deal. Here's how it works. First, the whole system is designed on a digital model, a digital twin of your facility. Then, you run a simulation to validate everything, throughput, efficiency, you name it. But here's the magic part. The exact same digital file from that simulation is what's used to run the actual fleet on your floor.
So the bottom line is this. There are no surprises. The performance you see and you validate in that simulation is the exact same performance you get in real life. For any manager out there, this just dramatically lowers your implementation risk. It ensures the system you plan for is the system you actually get.
All right, so we've covered technology and systems, but there is one last crucial piece of that unseen 90%, and that's the company you choose to partner with. Having the right partner is absolutely essential for long-term success.
And when you look at a company like Savant, the automation, their history goes back over 70 years. They started out as Barrett Electronics Corporation. And get this, they were the original inventors of the AGV. So we're not talking about some new company just chasing a hot trend. These guys are the foundational experts in the entire industry.
And that long history, it translates directly into a real commitment to longevity. Because Savant develops all its own technology in-house, they can actually guarantee a support lifecycle of over 30 years for their systems. Now think about that. When you're calculating the total cost of ownership on a major investment, that kind of long-term guarantee is an absolutely vital factor. This all comes down to what's called the original equipment manufacturer, or OEM advantage. You're not dealing with some integrator who's just patching together technology from a bunch of different third parties. No, you get a single point of accountability for absolutely everything: hardware, software, the works. If you need support, you're not calling a random help desk, you're talking directly to the engineers who designed and built your system. It completely eliminates that awful game of vendors pointing fingers at each other.
Okay, so let's bring this all together. We started with the visible vehicle, but we've seen that real, lasting success is driven by all those unseen systems humming along below the surface. The whole point here is to give you a better framework, a better way to evaluate the entire system, not just the shiny hardware.
So if you only remember a few things, make it these 4. 1. Always look past the hardware to that unseen 90%. 2. You've got to prioritize bulletproof navigation that can handle messy, real-world conditions. 3. Demand a versatile system that you can test completely risk-free before you buy. And finally, number 4, partner directly with a stable manufacturer who you know is going to be there for the long haul. And that leaves us with the one single essential question you have to ask when you're making a decision this big. Are you just looking at the tip of the iceberg, or are you actually seeing the whole thing?